Welcome to Hollywood Graveyard, where we set out to remember and celebrate the lives of those who lived to entertain us by visiting their final resting places. Today we stroll through the animated graveyards of Disney to pay homage to the talented artists, actors, musicians, and Imagineers who brought a little magic to our lives. Join us, won't you? In our cemetery wanderings over the years, we've come across quite a few Disney legends, both in the literal sense, those named by Disney as Disney legends, Disney's own sort of Hall of Fame, as well as those who, though not official Disney legends, have contributed their immeasurable talents to create the magic of Disney. Walt Disney's name may top the marquee, but it's taken hundreds, nay thousands of talented men and women to bring his visions to life. Animators, artists, ink and painters, storytellers, actors, filmmakers, special effects artists, musicians, Imagineers, and so on. Today we'll see just how many of these stars we can remember in one video. Spoiler alert, it's a lot. So many in fact, this will be our longest video to date. So to help you navigate and digest this video over time, if necessary, we've broken out chapters in the video description. We begin today with the man who started it all, a man who needs no introduction, and whose name has become synonymous with wholesome family entertainment. In a small family garden just outside the Freedom Mausoleum at Forest Lawn, Glendale is the final resting place of Walt Disney. Walt began drawing cartoons as a youth in Kansas City, and in 1921 formed Laugh-O-Gram Studios to produce animated cartoons. In 1923, Disney moved to Hollywood and formed with his brother Roy Disney Brothers Studio. Their first success was a series called The Alice Comedies, featuring a live-action Alice in an animated world. But it was the 1928 release of a cartoon with the novelty of synchronized sound and music, and featuring a plucky little mouse named Mickey, that really put Disney on the map. Mickey Mouse would become a hit, and an extension of Walt himself, who even provided the voice for the character.
Gosh, Rudolf! A present from Australia! Oh boy!
Disney oversaw every aspect of production, continually pushing the boundaries of innovation in animation and entertainment. First with sound, then soon color, and eventually the first cel-animated feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, in 1937. Never one to rest on his laurels, Disney expanded into live-action film, pioneered early television, and innovated the theme park industry with Disneyland in 1955. He holds the record for the most Academy Awards earned by an individual, 26, including 4 honorary. Walt Disney died at the age of 65 in 1966, not living long enough to see the completion of his grandest vision, Walt Disney World. Contrary to urban legends, Walt was not cryogenically frozen or buried at Disneyland. He was cremated, and I'm told half of his ashes were scattered off of Pacific Palisades, the other half interred here in this garden. Reporting on Walt's death, CBS News said, quote, "What Walt Disney seemed to know was that while there was very little grown-up in a child, there's a lot of child in every grown-up. To a child, this weary world is brand new, gift-wrapped, and Disney tried to keep it that way for adults. Escapism from reality. He probably did more to heal or at least to soothe troubled human spirits than all the psychiatrists in the world. Today people are saying we'll never see his like again. We'd better." In 1925, Walt married Lillian Bounds, who was working in the ink and paint department at Disney. She was an ink artist for many of the Alice comedies, as well as the first produced Mickey Mouse short, though not the first released, Plane Crazy. She's also credited for suggesting the name of Mickey for Mickey Mouse, disapproving of Walt's first choice, Mortimer. Lillian was named a Disney legend in 2003. Also here is a marker to Disney's daughter, Sharon, whose ashes were scattered in Hawaii, and her husband, Robert B. Brown. Walt Disney's right-hand man in those very early days was his friend, uniquely named Iwerks. This is the columbarium of remembrance at Forest Lawn, Hollywood, where we find his niche. Walt and Ub met and began working together in 1919 back in Kansas City. Iwerks would be the chief animator at Laugh-O-Gram, and later moved out to Hollywood with Walt to be the first animator hired at the new Disney Brothers studio, including for the new character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. When Disney lost Oswald to Universal, Walt asked Ub to stay on and help him create a new character. What they came up with was Mickey Mouse. Ub is considered the co-creator of Mickey Mouse, having taken Walt's rough sketches and refined them into the final character. By this time, Walt had essentially ceased doing any animation, taking on the producer-storyteller role he would be known for. It was Ub who almost single-handedly drew the early Mickey Mouse cartoons. He was renowned for his lightning speed. Ub was not only known for his animation genius, but also technical wizardry as well, developing early versions of the multiplane camera, as well as innovating special effects photographic processes, which would earn him 2 honorary Academy Awards. He was named a Disney legend in 1989. While Ub was the principal animator in those early days, he would have help from some young men who would grow to become greats in their own right. To find one of them, we head to Big Sandy, Tennessee, and Pleasant Ridge Cemetery. This is the final resting place of animator Les Clark. He started working for Disney in 1927 and would work under Ub Iwerks as an in-betweener on Steamboat Willie. The in-betweener being the person who draws the frames in between the key frames drawn by the lead animator. Les would continue to animate Mickey Mouse in future productions like Fantasia, and grow to become one of Disney's lead character animators, including in Snow White, Pinocchio, and Cinderella. He was the first of what would become known as Disney's 9 old men, 9 of the most talented and trusted animators at Disney, tasked with animating lead characters. He worked for Disney for some 48 years until his retirement, and was named a Disney legend in 1989. Another young talent who helped Steamboat Willie come together was Johnny Cannon. He was not only an assistant animator on the film, he was also responsible for producing the sound effects. Johnny would continue on as an animator at Disney, working on Mickey and Donald shorts, as well as a number of silly symphonies. He was just 39 when he died of a heart attack, and rests here at Forest Lawn, Glendale. The name Rudolf Ising is often associated with Warner Brothers' Merry Melody and Looney Tunes cartoons, but Ising actually met and began working with Disney back in Kansas City. He and frequent collaborator Hugh Harman worked as animators at Laugh-O-Gram on the early Alice comedies, as well as the first Mickey, Plane Crazy. Harman and Ising left Disney to helm Warner Brothers' Looney Tunes, which were an analog of Disney's Silly Symphonies. Ising rests here at Pacific View in Orange County. Another Kansas City native to catch the animation bug was Fritz Freleng. He too is more closely associated with Warner Brothers cartoons, but got his start with Disney in 1927, working as an animator on the Alice comedies and Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. He left Disney the following year, and would go on to be a key figure at Warner Brothers Animation, directing hundreds of cartoons and introducing or developing characters like Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, and Yosemite Sam, as referenced right here on his crypt. He rests at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City. We've mentioned the Alice comedies a number of times. That's because before Mickey Mouse, the star of Disney was a live-action little girl named Alice, who was played by Virginia Davis. The one-reel comedies featured a live girl in a cartoon world. These began at Laugh-O-Gram in Kansas City, but when Disney moved to Los Angeles, he encouraged the Davis family to move as well, so they could continue making the Alice comedies. Virginia would star in over a dozen of these comedies between 1923 and 1925. She was named a Disney legend in 1998, and we find her niche here at Holy Cross in Culver City. Every aspiring creative needs their first big break, even Walt Disney. We find the woman who gave Walt his first big break in Hollywood here at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. This is Margaret Winkler. She was head of her own distribution company, Winkler Productions, which specialized in early animation. In 1923, Disney pitched the first Alice short, Alice's Wonderland, to Winkler, who signed him for a distribution deal. Disney then formed Disney Brothers Studios, which later became the Walt Disney Company, to produce the Alice comedies for Winkler. Margaret Winkler was the first female member of the Producers Guild, often hiding her gender by using just her initials, M.J. Winkler. If Disney movies have taught us anything, it's that every good narrative needs a villain to set the hero out on their path to his or her destiny. Disney historians sometimes cast this role of villain as Charles Mintz, Margaret Winkler's husband. He assumed control of Winkler Productions after marrying Margaret. Unhappy with the Alice comedies, Mintz requested a new character. What Walt and Ub came up with was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. With the success of Oswald, Mintz hired away nearly all of Disney's staff and moved production of Oswald to his own studio. Disney was crushed. But with the faithful Iwerks by his side, Disney vowed never again to sign away the rights to his creations and worked to develop the character that would give new birth to Disney, Mickey Mouse. So vilify Mintz if you must, but ask yourself, if he hadn't done what he'd done, would we have Mickey Mouse, or Snow White, or Disneyland, or any of the Disney that we know today? Family was key to Disney's success. By his side from day one was older brother Roy, who ran the business side of Disney. While Walt was a brilliant creative, he was a terrible businessman. As co-founder of the Walt Disney Company, it was up to Walt's brother Roy to manage the company's finances and find the funding for Walt's more ambitious projects, like the first feature Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Disneyland. After Walt died, Roy postponed his retirement to oversee the fulfillment of Walt's final dream, Walt Disney World.
May Walt Disney World bring joy and inspiration and new knowledge to all who come to this happy place.
Roy died just months after the completion of Disney World. He rests here at Forest Lawn, Hollywood. And of course, it goes without saying that without Flora and Elias Disney, there would be no Walt. This is the Sanctuary of Truth in the Great Mausoleum, where rest Walt Disney's parents. Flora Call married Elias Disney in 1888 and was a devoted and loving mother to her children. Walt was very close to his mother. After the success of Snow White in 1937, Walt surprised his parents by purchasing them a home in North Hollywood. Tragically, there were problems with the furnace in the home, which leaked carbon monoxide. Flora died from asphyxiation in 1938. Walt was devastated by this, blaming himself for her death. It would haunt him for the rest of his life, and many believe was reflected in his movies, which often feature characters losing or not having a mother. Next to Flora is Disney patriarch Elias Disney. He was a stern man, but Walt adored him, as he always pushed his children to be their very best. He had a number of odd jobs in his life, including as a carpenter and contractor, which Walt would reflect in the window honoring his father at Disneyland. It's no coincidence that many of the Disney legends we have visited and will yet visit rest at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills. It's literally right across the street from Disney Studios. In fact, the view from many of the animators' offices at Disney may just be this very cemetery. In these grounds is a pioneer of personality animation, Fred Moore. He was another major figure in the development of Mickey Mouse. It was Fred Moore who gave Mickey Mouse the redesign from the squash and stretch, black and white pie-eyed style of the early days to the design that we know today, first debuting in a major way in 1941's Fantasia. Fred Moore's overall style was partly responsible for the transition from the early Iwerks days to the standardized, iconic Disney look that we're all so familiar with. Other characters he animated include the Three Little Pigs, the dwarfs in Snow White, and Lampwick in Pinocchio, which was a caricature of himself.
Your name's Lampwick. What's yours?
Pinocchio.
He was just 41 when he died in a car accident, and was named a Disney legend in 1995. Not far from Moore, in the Courts of Remembrance, we find the niche of Art Babbitt. He began working as an animator at Disney in the 30s, his first big assignment being the animation of the evil queen in Snow White. Next, he would animate Geppetto in Pinocchio. Babbitt is also remembered for taking the minor character known as Dippy Dog and developing him into Goofy. Babbitt was one of the truly great animators in his day, and though his relationship with Disney was sometimes tumultuous, particularly with the labor disputes in the 40s, he was named a Disney legend in 2007. Earlier, we mentioned Disney's 9 old men, the first of which was Les Clark. We find a few more of Disney's 9 old men right here at Forest Lawn Hollywood. This is Erik Larson. He had a hand in every major Disney production from the 30s to the 80s. Among the characters he animated are Figaro in Pinocchio, Thumper in Bambi, and Prince Charming in Cinderella, among many others. He was named a Disney legend in 1989. Nearby is another of Disney's 9 old men, John Lounsbery. He joined Disney in 1935, specializing in the Pluto shorts. He'd soon become a directing animator on feature films, including the characters Honest John in Pinocchio, Timothy in Dumbo, and Tony in Lady and the Tramp. He was also co-director of The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and The Rescuers. John was named a Disney legend in 1989. The remainder of Disney's 9 old men are Mark Davis, Ollie Johnston, Frank Thomas, Milt Kahl, Ward Kimball, and Wolfgang Reitherman, who we cannot visit because they were either cremated or their resting place is unknown at this time. For our next legend of Disney animation, we head to St. John Ukrainian Orthodox Cemetery in Connecticut. Here lies Vladimir Tytla, who went by Bill. He was another who ranks among the greatest animators of all time, sometimes called animation's Michelangelo. He brought his skills to Disney in the mid-30s, beginning with short films like The Cookie Carnival. Bill was soon tapped to work with Fred Moore to animate the dwarfs in Snow White. Among the characters he's best known for animating are the Winged Devil in Fantasia, Stromboli in Pinocchio, and Dumbo. He was named a Disney legend in 1998. Our next stop brings us to Wisconsin and Forest Hill Cemetery. Here we find the grave of Grim Natwick. He's best known as the co-creator and animator of Betty Boop at Fleischer Studios, but Grim spent a few years at Disney in the 30s. He animated for a number of Silly Symphonies and Mickey shorts, but his biggest contribution was as one of the animators who brought Snow White to life in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. We're back at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills. While his time with Disney was brief, artist Tyrus Wong made a big impact while he was there. The Chinese-born artist played a major role in making Bambi the beloved classic that it is. It was Tyrus Wong's background and concept paintings that would define the world of Bambi, a style that captured a more poetic feeling compared to other Disney films. He was named a Disney legend in 2001. And look at those dates. He lived to be 106. Another Asian American who made his mark on Disney was Iwao Takamoto, whose grave we find here at Mount Sinai, next door to Forest Lawn Hollywood. He's perhaps best known today for his work at Hanna-Barbera, designing characters like Scooby-Doo, but Takamoto got his start at Disney in the 40s, studying under the 9 old men. He was an animator on several films of the era, including Peter Pan and Sleeping Beauty. A lesser-known branch of Disney today was once a fairly significant one, comics. The Mickey Mouse Daily Comic Strip began in 1930 and played a major role in the global reach of Mickey Mouse, and ipso facto, Disney. The man known for unflaggingly good cheer who daily penned the Mickey Mouse comic strip was Floyd Gottfredson, who rests here at Forest Lawn Hollywood. Floyd would continue to produce the Mickey Mouse comic strips for the next 45 years. He was named a Disney legend in 2003. Mickey Mouse wasn't the only one to venture into comics. Not only did Donald Duck have a comic strip, he would also headline a popular series of comic books. This is Hillcrest Memorial Park in Grants Pass, Oregon, where we find the final resting place of Carl Barks. Called the Duck Man, he would become synonymous with Disney's ducks. He collaborated on many of the early Donald Duck cartoons, and by the 40s had begun developing comic books for Donald Duck, which he would produce for the next 25 years. These comics introduced us into the expanded world of Duckburg. Perhaps the best known of the characters Barks created for this comic was Donald's uncle, Scrooge McDuck. His work would be adapted on TV in the 80s series DuckTales. Carl Barks, the good duck artist, was named a Disney legend in 1991. The personalities and voices of our favorite animated Disney characters are owed to some very talented human beings. Walt was the original official voice of Mickey Mouse, but when his schedule made it harder and harder to do voice work, the role was handed over to veteran Disney actor, musician, and sound effects guru, Jimmy MacDonald, resting here at Forest Lawn Glendale.
Hiya, Pluto, old pal! No, take it easy!
He voiced the beloved character from 1946 to 1977, and was also the voice of Chip. In addition to voice work, Jimmy was a sound effects wizard, creating what was perhaps the most impressive sound effects library in motion picture history, crafting sounds for hundreds of Disney short and feature-length films. Jimmy MacDonald was named a Disney legend in 1993. He would mentor the man who would be the third to officially voice Mickey Mouse, alluded to right here on his marker, Wayne Allwine. We're back at the Freedom Mausoleum of Forest Lawn Glendale. It's a fitting resting place for the third man to voice Mickey Mouse, just feet from Walt Disney. When Jimmy MacDonald passed the torch on to Wayne Allwine to voice Mickey, he reminded him, "Remember kid, you're only filling in for the boss." Wayne did remember that, and did incredible work keeping the cartoon icon alive for some 32 years, including in Mickey's Christmas Carol.
And a bah humbug! I mean, a Merry Christmas to you, sir!
And Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Kinda dangerous, ain't it?
Yeah, you could get killed, huh?
Wayne would voice Mickey until his death in 2009, and was named a Disney legend in 2008. I haven't been able to confirm this, but I believe the MM3 here stands for Mickey Mouse number 3. Did you know that Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse were married in real life? Wayne was married to Russi Taylor, who was the voice of Minnie Mouse for 33 years, beginning in 1986. The two even performed together as Mickey and Minnie in a number of films, including Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas.
Oh, Mickey, I can't believe you gave up what means the most to you for me.
Oh, Minnie, you're all the music I'll ever need.
Russi voiced Minnie until her death in 2019, including the new Mickey Mouse series featured on the Disney Channel. Other voices Russi is known for include Huey, Dewey, and Louie on DuckTales, and several voices on The Simpsons. I'm not sure what the MMF stands for here. Minnie Mouse Forever, perhaps? Russi Taylor was named a Disney legend in 2008. Before Russi Taylor, a number of other actresses voiced Minnie Mouse. Technically, the first to voice Minnie was Walt himself, when Minnie made her debut in 1928's Steamboat Willie. The first to officially voice Minnie for an extended period, the woman responsible for defining Minnie Mouse's voice and personality was Marcelite Garner, who Disney had recruited from Ink and Paint. Thelma Boardman then briefly took over the role, followed by actress Ruth Clifford, who we find here at Holy Cross in Culver City. Ruth voiced Minnie from 1946 to 1952, including in Mickey's Delayed Date.
Oh, hello, Minnie.
Mickey Mouse, you're late for our date. I've been waiting here for over an hour.
Date?
Ruth also voiced Daisy Duck in Donald's Dream Voice. One of Disney's most popular characters after Mickey and Minnie, and the one with perhaps the most unique voice, is Donald Duck. We're at San Fernando Mission Cemetery to find the man who concocted that iconic voice, Clarence Ducky Nash. He never set out to be the world's most famous animated duck, once recounting, "I wanted to be a doctor, but instead became the biggest quack in the world." He began at Disney in the 30s doing animal sounds when he was cast as a talking duck in 1934's The Wise Little Hen, Donald Duck's debut. Little did anyone know that this ancillary character would become one of Disney's most enduring and beloved characters, owed in no small part to the incredibly unique voice and personality given him by Clarence Nash. A voice that even Disney acknowledged was sometimes a little difficult to understand.
Send my voice in here.
Your voice? Oh, Clarence Nash. Yes, I'll send him right in.
Hi, Donald.
Clarence Nash would voice Donald Duck in animated shorts, feature films, on television, and anywhere Donald could be seen or heard for the span of 50 years. Clarence Nash died in 1985 and was named a Disney legend in 1993. Another favorite Disney character made his debut in the early 30s, and like Donald Duck, The instantly recognizable voice and personality are owed to another Disney legend, who rests here at Holy Cross in Culver City. Vance DeBar Colvig, known as Pinto, was a living sound effects machine, concocting an array of unique vocalizations for early Disney shorts. In 1932, he voiced a character called Dippy Dog in the short Mickey's Review. The character would soon be renamed Goofy, the clumsy, dim-witted anthropomorphic dog who would complete the buddy trio of Mickey, Donald, and Goofy.
Oh, the world owes me a living.
Those with a keen ear will hear that unmistakable voice of Pinto all over early Disney. He also voiced Pluto, Sleepy and Grumpy in Snow White, and several Silly Symphony characters, including Practical Pig, the Grasshopper, and the Gingerbread Boy. Pinto would voice Goofy until his death in 1967, and would later be named a Disney legend in 1993. His grave had remained unmarked, so Hollywood Graveyard teamed up with Pinto's descendants to have a marker placed. This gravestone was designed by Pinto's great-granddaughter, Courtney. Before Donald and Goofy arrived on the scene, the best friends of Mickey and Minnie were a horse and a cow named Horace and Clarabelle. This is the Iris Terrace of the Great Mausoleum, where we find the niche of Elvia Allman, who was the voice of Clarabelle Cow. The anthropomorphic cow first appeared as a fully developed character in 1930's The Shindig, where she was voiced by Marcellite Garner, the voice of Minnie Mouse. Clarabelle didn't always have spoken or sung lines, but after that, when she did, Elvia Allman was the woman behind the cow.
Ladies, look at your houses on! Your houses on!
She voiced the character a handful of times, beginning with Mickey's Melodramer in 1933, all the way to Elvia Allman's final role in 1990's The Prince and the Pauper. In the mid-30s, Disney set out on his most ambitious venture yet, a make-or-break project many called Disney's Folly. The first cel-animated, sound-synced feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. This film would introduce the very first of the canonical Disney villains, the Evil Queen. We're at Inglewood Park Cemetery now to find the woman who voiced the Queen, Lucille Laverne. It would be her final role.
Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
Lucille's grave remained unmarked until 2020, when fans helped fund a campaign led by Jessica Wall of Silence is Platinum to have this marker placed. The title character of Snow White was played by Adriana Caselotti. She was cremated after her death, so we can't visit her, but another Snow White character is also here at Inglewood, not far from Lucille. This is Scotty Matra, who played one of the Seven Dwarfs, Bashful.
You're bashful.
Oh, gosh.
With the success of Snow White, Disney quickly began work on their next feature, Pinocchio. The voice that would be central to that film, the narrator, who happens to also be a cricket named Jiminy, was played by Cliff Edwards, known as Ukulele Ike.
Conscience is that still, small voice that people won't listen to.
Are you my conscience?
Who, me?
He would also sing what would become the unofficial theme of Disney, When You Wish Upon a Star. Cliff would reprise the role of Jiminy in Fun and Fancy Free and on Disney television productions as well. He was named a Disney legend in 2000. We head now to Grandview Memorial Park in Glendale, where rests a vocal staple of early Disney films, Verna Felton. Her first role at Disney was as Mrs. Jumbo in 1941's Dumbo. She'd go on to voice a number of iconic characters, including the fairy godmother in Cinderella,
Just a wave of my stick and to finish the trick. Bippity, boppity.
the Queen of Hearts in Alice in Wonderland,
Flip their heads!
and Flora in Sleeping Beauty.
Little princess, my gift shall be the gift of beauty.
She can also be heard in Lady and the Tramp and in The Jungle Book. She hasn't been named a Disney legend yet, but if anyone deserves it, it would certainly be Verna Felton. During the war years, Disney struggled to turn a profit. Producing animated films was just so costly. They began doing live-action animated hybrid films, the live-action portions being much less costly to produce. Among these was the 1946 film Song of the South. We're in Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis, where rests the actor fondly remembered for his portrayal of Uncle Remus in the film, James Baskett, one of Disney's first live-action feature stars. He was awarded an honorary Academy Award for his able and heartwarming characterization of Uncle Remus, friend and storyteller to the children of the world. This would make him the first black male actor to receive an Academy Award. Ironically, Baskett was unable to attend the film's premiere in Atlanta because at that time, theaters in the South were racially segregated by law. Unfortunately, the role that was his crowning achievement is virtually impossible to see today. Due to outdated racial stereotypes and offensive depictions in the film, Song of the South has never been released by Disney in the home video or streaming markets, and likely never will be. Two child actors that would become regulars in Disney productions got their start in Song of the South. We're at Eternal Hills Memorial Park in Oceanside, where we find a monument to Bobby Driscoll, the first actor to be put under personal contract at Disney when he signed on for the role of Johnny in Song of the South. But audiences remember him best today as both the voice and model for Peter Pan.
But Peter, how do we get to Neverland?
Fly, of course.
Fly?
It's easy.
He also had a number of roles in Disney's live-action features, including as Jim Hawkins in Treasure Island. Bobby was just 31 when he died, but he's not actually buried here. His body was discovered in an abandoned tenement in New York. Having no identification on him, he was buried in a potter's field on New York's Hart Island. This marker was later placed here with his father. Another child star brought on for Song of the South was Luana Patton, who played Ginny. She'd go on to be a regular in Disney's live-action and hybrid films like So Dear to My Heart, Melody Time, Fun and Fancy Free, and Johnny Tremaine. She was just 57 when she died from respiratory failure, and rests here at Forest Lawn, Long Beach. The inscription here is likely a reference to her film, So Dear to My Heart. The next major animated feature in Disney's pipeline was Cinderella in 1950. And our next stop is at Mount Sinai in Los Angeles, where we find the grave of a woman who would become the quintessential Disney villain in the 50s, Eleanor Audley. She was both the model and voice of the stepmother in Cinderella.
Oh yes, and the tapestries, and the draperies.
But I just finished.
Do them again!
Just a few years later, she would be both the voice and model of Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty.
Before the sun sets on her 16th birthday, she shall prick her finger and die.
And that iconic voice can be heard reverberating in the halls of the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland as Madame Leota.
Send us a message from somewhere beyond.
Prince Charming also made his debut in Cinderella, the archetypal fairy tale leading man. We're at Valley Oaks Memorial Park in Westlake Village, where rests William Phipps. He was the actor who provided the speaking voice of Prince Charming.
I haven't met the prince.
A prince? But didn't you know that...
Goodbye.
No, wait. I don't even know your name. How will I find you?
Voice actress extraordinaire Lucille Bliss is perhaps best known as Smurfette. But she also had a number of voice roles at Disney, including Anastasia in Cinderella.
There. I knew it was my slipper. Oh, exactly my size.
You can also hear her as Daisy and Tulip in Alice in Wonderland and a mermaid in Peter Pan. She rests here at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Yet another legendary voice actress can be heard in Cinderella in a smaller role as Lucifer the Cat. We're at Westwood Village Memorial Park, where we find the niche of June Foray. The actress known for characters like Cindy Lou Who and Rocky the Flying Squirrel had additional roles at Disney as well, including Lena Hyena in Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Grandmother Fa in Mulan.
I should have prayed to the ancestors for luck.
How lucky can they be? They're dead. Besides, I've got all the luck we'll need.
Just 1 year after Cinderella, in 1951, came one of Disney's quirkiest and most artistically unique movies to date, Alice in Wonderland. Two of the most memorable characters in the film are the Mad Hatter and the March Hare. The Mad Hatter was voiced by Hollywood's favorite vaudevillian, Ed Wynn, whose niche we find here in the Great Mausoleum.
Oh, this is the very best butter. What are you talking about? Tea? Tea? Oh, I never thought of tea, of course. No. Tea.
Ed would go on to perform in several live-action Disney productions, including Babes in Toyland and as Uncle Albert in Mary Poppins.
Nice. I was hoping you'd turn up.
He was named a Disney legend in 2013. Ed's son Keenan also rests here, an actor who can be seen in a handful of Disney films, including Herbie Rides Again. Our next stop is San Fernando Mission Cemetery, to find the constant companion of the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, or at least the man who voiced the March Hare. Here lies the great mustachio, Jerry Colonna.
And on birthday, if you have a birthday, then you... She doesn't know what an on-birthday is.
After falling down the rabbit hole, in order to enter Wonderland, Alice must first pass through a small door. We're back at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills to find the man who voiced the doorknob, Joseph Kearns.
I simply must get through.
Sorry, you're much too big. Simply impassable.
You mean impossible?
No, impassable. Nothing's impossible.
The first voice we hear in Alice in Wonderland is that of Alice's older sister, voiced by actress Heather Angel. We find her niche here at Santa Barbara Cemetery. She would also have a role in Disney's next animated feature, Peter Pan, as Mrs. Darling.
But Mother, I don't want to grow up.
Now, dear, don't worry about it anymore tonight.
In 1955, Disney released Lady and the Tramp. The talents of Miss Peggy Lee were called on to voice a number of characters in the movie, spoken and singing as well. She voiced Darling, the Siamese twins, and Peg, a character inspired by her.
He's a tramp, but they love him.
We find this memorial bench to Peggy Lee at Westwood Village Memorial Park. We're into the 60s now, and the last animated feature produced by Walt while he was still alive, The Jungle Book. Another of Disney's instantly recognizable voices belonged to Sebastian Cabot, also here at Westwood. He voiced Bagheera in The Jungle Book.
I've had it, man cub. From now on, you're on your own.
He can also be heard in The Sword and the Stone, and perhaps most notably as the narrator of the Winnie the Pooh series.
Now, Pooh had some very unusual adventures, and they all happened right here in the 100-acre wood.
When it came time to cast King Louie in The Jungle Book, Disney called on one of the great jazz musicians of the big band era, Louis Prima, for the speaking and singing voice of the King of the Apes.
I'm tired of walking around, oh, ooby-doo, I want to be like you.
He rests here in his home of New Orleans at Metairie Cemetery. In The Jungle Book, we also hear the legendary Phil Harris as the lovable bear, Baloo.
All you gotta do is look for the bare necessities.
You can also hear that deep, resonant voice in the Aristocats as O'Malley and as Little John in Robin Hood.
You know something, Robin, I was just wondering? Are we good guys or bad guys? You know, I mean, are robbing the rich to feed the poor?
Harris's dolphin-shaped urn rests here at Forest Lawn in Cathedral City. The next actor to play Baloo was Ed Gilbert, who we find here at Eternal Valley Memorial Park in Santa Clarita. For 90s kids like me, we remember Gilbert as the voice of Baloo in the 90s TV series, Tailspin.
We'll tell her we were attacked by air pirates.
Aw, Baloo, use that one yesterday.
There we were, outnumbered 1,000,000,000. We were dodging and weaving and
Rewinding back to the 70s, in 1973, Disney made their adaptation of Robin Hood. We're in Alabama now, and Maxwell Chapel United Methodist Church, where rests Maxwell Buttram, better known as Pat Buttram. The comedic actor who would joke that his voice only made it halfway through puberty was perfect as the loathsome Sheriff of Nottingham.
If you shoot half as good as you blabbermouth, you're better than Robin Hood.
He also voiced Napoleon in The Aristocats, Chief in Fox and the Hound, and Luke in The Rescuers. Back in SoCal, we're at San Fernando Mission Cemetery, where we find Candy Candido. His was that unique, deep gravel voice you heard in a number of animated films of this era, including as Captain of the Guard in Robin Hood.
The tournament of the Golden Arrow will now begin.
He was also the Indian chief in Peter Pan, Fidget in The Great Mouse Detective, and Brutus and Nero in The Rescuers. Speaking of The Rescuers, let's head back to Westwood Village Memorial Park to find the actress who voiced Miss Bianca in The Rescuers. Ava Gabor, whose distinctive accent can also be heard as Lisa Douglas in Green Acres, voiced Miss Bianca in both The Rescuers and The Rescuers Down Under.
Oh, I do that all the time, darling. Now, come on. Stop worrying.
She was also the voice of Duchess in The Aristocats. One of Ava Gabor's co-stars in The Aristocats can be found back at Forest Lawn, Hollywood. Here lies Scatman Crothers, who was the voice of the greatest cat of them all, Scat Cat.
Joseph Cat's the only cat who knows where it's at.
Earlier, we visited the narrator of The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Here at Woodlawn Cemetery in Santa Monica, in the mausoleum, we find the crypt of Hal Smith. The beloved actor known for playing Otis in The Andy Griffith Show was the voice of Owl in Winnie the Pooh.
Someone has pasted Piglet on my window. Well, well, who to? This is a surprise.
We've reached the 90s now, and the era of Disney's Renaissance, and what is considered one of the greatest animated films ever, Beauty and the Beast. At Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills, we find Tony Jay, a man whose deep, menacing voice was perfect for villains like Monsieur Dark.
Marry you? Oh, that is despicable. I love it.
Years later, he would voice Frollo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Beauty and the Beast took its stylistic cues from Broadway musicals, and so who better to play a talking candelabra named Lumiere than a leading man of the Broadway musical, Jerry Orbach.
So, you fall in love with her, she falls in love with you, and poof, the spell is broken.
He would reprise the role wherever Lumiere appeared until his death in 2004. Jerry Orbach rests here in the mausoleum at Trinity Church Cemetery in New York. Carrie Fisher. She was our princess, loved by millions the world over for her role as Leia in the Star Wars series of films. She was no damsel in distress or shrinking violet. Her Princess Leia was strong, feisty, intelligent, and stood her own with the boys. She first played the role in 1977's Star Wars, followed by the rest of the original trilogy, before reprising the role some 30 years later in The Force Awakens.
Rey, may the Force be with you.
Tragically, Carrie died just after finishing filming her scenes for The Last Jedi. She rests here at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills with her mother, actress Debbie Reynolds, who died one day later. Carrie was named a Disney legend in 2017. In the 1990s, Disney teamed up with Pixar to produce 3D computer-animated films, the first of which was Toy Story in 1995. For the voice of a cynical Mr. Potato Head, Disney Pixar called on the acerbic talents of insult comic Mr. Warmth, Don Rickles.
Hey, Ham, look, I'm Picasso.
I don't get it.
You uncultured swine.
He played Mr. Potato Head in all 4 Toy Story films, though having passed away in 2017 before recording lines for Toy Story 4, filmmakers had to use archive recordings of Mr. Rickles. He rests here at Mount Sinai Memorial Park in Los Angeles. Let's turn back the clock a bit and shift focus to Disney's live-action and television productions. Disney's first live-action feature comedy would also feature its first Disney legend. Fred MacMurray starred in the 1959 film The Shaggy Dog.
Wilmy, come on up now, it's getting late.
Okay, Pop.
Fred would appear in 7 Disney features in all, including The Absent-Minded Professor and Son of Flubber. He was the very first individual honored as a Disney legend in 1987, and rests here in the mausoleum at Holy Cross in Culver City. The biggest star of Disney television in the 50s can be found here at Santa Barbara Cemetery. Here lies Fess Parker, better known to every kid in the 50s as Davy Crockett. He appeared as the king of the wild frontier in the magical world of Disney beginning in 1954, becoming an instant hit.
Now, how'd you kill that brute?
With my knife? I was figuring on grinning him to death, but this here stumble-footed maid of yours come along and busted up my concentrate.
He even had a gold record in the Ballad of Davy Crockett. Other Disney productions Parker starred in include Old Yeller. He was named a Disney legend in 1991. The coonskin cap that appears here on his marker was all the rage with the kids in the 50s. If 50s kids weren't wearing their coonskin caps, they may well have been wearing Mickey ears, thanks to the popular TV show The Mickey Mouse Club, a variety show that first aired in 1955. We're at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills, where we find the head Mouseketeer, the adult host of the show, Jimmy Dodd.
Today is a day that is filled with surprises. Nobody knows what's gonna happen.
Not only did he host as Master of Ceremonies, but Jimmy Dodd also wrote many of the songs for the show, including the iconic opening theme. He was named a Disney legend in 1992. At the top of the hill are the Courts of Remembrance here at Forest Lawn. Along this wall of crypts, we find a man lovingly known as the Big Mooseketeer. This is Roy Williams. He began at Disney as an artist and gag man, but Disney felt his large stature and gentle demeanor would make him perfect as an adult Mouseketeer on the Mickey Mouse Club, bestowing on him the nickname featured here on his crypt.
Hey, what's going on here?
Fun for all and all for fun!
Oh!
We are the Merry Mouseketeers, Mouseketeers!
Roy is also responsible for having designed the mouse ears that have become synonymous with both the Mickey Mouse Club and Disney theme parks. He was inspired after seeing Mickey take his ears off like a cap in 1929's The Carnival Kid. Williams was named a Disney legend in 1992. At Disney, many of the young artists would rise in the ranks to eventually helm Disney projects as directors, writers, producers, etc. Take Hamilton Luske, for example, who rests here in the great mausoleum of Forest Lawn, Glendale. His career began at Disney in the 30s, becoming the first animator cast by Disney for his ambitious new project, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. As supervising animator, Luske was responsible for Snow White herself. After the success of Snow White, Ham, as he was known, turned his career to directing. He would direct or co-direct many of Disney's features to follow, including Pinocchio, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and more. And for his work directing the cartoon sequences of Mary Poppins, Ham Luske earned an Oscar. He was named a Disney legend in 1999. Also here at Forest Lawn, Glendale, in the dawn of tomorrow, we find Joe Grant. His early work as an artist at Disney includes the design of the evil queen in Snow White. Grant would go on to become one of Disney's great story men, writing and developing movies like Fantasia, Dumbo, and Lady and the Tramp. The character of Lady was inspired by his own English spaniel named Lady. Grant left the studio in 1949, but would return 40 years later, in 1989, to contribute visual and story development for films like Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas, Hercules, and more. He lived to be 96 and was named a Disney legend in 1992. Over now to Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills, we find Jack Hanna. He's known for his work on Disney's short films, first as a writer, then as a director, including most of the post-war Donald Duck cartoons. Hanna is often credited for helping create the personality of the animated version of Donald Duck in this era. He also directed the fan favorite Lambert the Sheepish Lion. Later he would move into television, writing and directing for the magical world of Disney. Jack Hanna was named a Disney legend in 1992. Just up the road, in this same section, across the street from the Red Church, we find Bill Peet, whose grave features woodland creatures not unlike those seen in Bambi. He joined Disney as an animator in the late 30s, but quickly developed as a leading story man. He was a writer on classics like Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan. He would go on to be the sole developer of 101 Dalmatians and The Sword in the Stone, which, in addition to writing, he also led character design and performance. Bill Peet was named a Disney legend in 1996. Back to Forest Lawn, Glendale, this is Winston Hibler, another of the great storymen of early Disney. He wrote for films including The Adventures of Ichabod Crane and Mr. Toad, Alice in Wonderland, Sleeping Beauty, and Cinderella. When Disney began producing nature films, Hib, as he was known, was cast as narrator for his smooth voice. He was also a series producer on television for the magical world of Disney. Winston Hibbler was named a Disney legend in 1992. Among those in the next generation of great storymen at Disney is Vance Jerry, who rests here at Mountain View Cemetery in Altadena. He began as a storyboard and layout artist at Disney before moving into the story department, writing for films like The Aristocats, Robin Hood, and The Great Mouse Detective. In later years, he went back to visual development, designing characters for films including Pocahontas, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Tarzan. We're back just feet from where Walt Disney is laid to rest. Here lies Bill Walsh. He was a producer who worked mainly on Disney's live-action features. He wrote and produced Disney's first live-action comedy, The Shaggy Dog, in 1959, and on television he produced Davy Crockett and The Mickey Mouse Club. Walsh would receive 2 Oscar nominations in his career for both co-writing and co-producing Mary Poppins in 1964. Other films he produced include Bedknobs and Broomsticks and The Absent-Minded Professor. He was named a Disney legend in 1991. An oft-overlooked aspect of film production is sound, but it was sound that made Disney in those early years. We're at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, where rests William Garrity. He was an inventor and audio engineer who helped Disney record the sound for Steamboat Willie in 1928. He would be instrumental in the following years in making Disney's cartoons the most technically advanced, developing early sound for film, including stereo sound, which they called Fantasound. He won an honorary Academy Award for Fantasia for the outstanding contribution to the use of sound in motion pictures. Bill Garrity also developed the advanced multiplane camera for Disney, which gave animations a sense of depth through parallax, first used in the 1937 short The Old Mill, and also seen in fly-through village sequences in Pinocchio. He was named a Disney legend in 1999. Disney exploded onto the scene in 1928 with its release of Steamboat Willie. And as mentioned, it was the novelty of synchronized music and sound that made it so remarkable. Music would continue to play a central role in the rise of early Disney animation, particularly with the Silly Symphonies, short animations whimsically set to music. And to this very day, music is often the emotional heart of Disney productions.
Not bad for a dead guy. Not so bad yourself, Gordito.
It's taken an incredible lineup of composers and songwriters spanning multiple generations to pen the tunes that instantly transport us back to our childhoods. Let's meet a few of them. This is the Abbey of the Psalms at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, where we find, high on the wall, the crypt of Carl Stalling. The prolific composer of hundreds of Looney Tunes and Merry Melody cartoons actually got his start with Disney, meeting young Walt back in Kansas City. Walt would hire Carl Stalling to score early Mickey Mouse cartoons like Plain Crazy and Gallopin' Gaucho, subsequently naming him Disney's first music director. In addition to scoring Mickey shorts, Stalling would also write music for Silly Symphonies, a series he devised with the idea of crafting music before the animation, the first of which was the ever-popular Skeleton Dance. And here's a fun fact. The very first words spoken by Mickey Mouse were not actually voiced by Walt, but by Carl Stalling in 1929's The Carnival Kid. And what were Mickey's first words? Hot dog.
Hot dog! Hot dog!
There's one tune that has become synonymous with Disney. Its signature tune, the main theme of Walt Disney Entertainment. We're at Valhalla Cemetery in the Mausoleum of the Resurrection. Here is the niche of Lee Harline. The Salt Lake City-born composer wrote the music for When You Wish Upon a Star.
When you wish upon a star.
The song was written for Pinocchio in 1940 and would be the first Disney song to win an Oscar, which Harline shared with lyricist Ned Washington. The score for Pinocchio earned Harline a second Oscar that year. The tune from When You Wish Upon a Star now opens just about every Disney movie playing over the castle logo. Harline also composed the music for Snow White and scored a number of silly symphonies, like The Grasshopper and the Ants and The Cookie Carnival. Such a humble resting place for a man whose music is known and loved by likely billions across the globe. Lee Harline was named a Disney legend in 2001. Many of Disney's early films had multiple composers. We're in the Freedom Mausoleum at Forest Lawn Glendale, where rests Paul J. Smith. Along with Lee Harline and others, Smith wrote music for Disney's early films, including Snow White and Pinocchio, which earned him an Oscar. Smith earned 7 Oscar nominations in addition to his win for his Disney music, which also included The Three Caballeros and Cinderella. Live-action Disney films would follow, like The Shaggy Dog, The Parent Trap, and Pollyanna, as well as Disney's True Life Adventures. After his death in 1985, Paul Smith was laid to rest here with his mother, though his name is not on the niche. He was named a Disney legend in 1994. We leave LA for Ellensburg, Washington, and visit the Independent Order of Oddfellows Cemetery to find our next legendary Disney musician. This is where Oliver Wallace is laid to rest. Oliver Wallace teamed up with Paul Smith to score Cinderella in 1950, which would earn him an Oscar nomination. Before Cinderella, Wallace had written Oscar-winning music for Dumbo, including that acid trip of a song, Pink Elephants on Parade.
Look out! Pink elephants on parade, here they come, hippity-hoppity.
Other feature animations include Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, and Lady and the Tramp. Wallace's skills were also called upon for films like The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, as well as Donald Duck's theme song in the 40s.
Who gets stuck with all the bad luck? No one but Donald Duck.
Oliver Wallace was named a Disney legend in 2008. Back in LA, we're at Forest Lawn, Glendale. Here we find another of the great tunesmiths of early Disney, Frank Churchill. Frank is perhaps best known for penning the music to many of the songs that were featured in classic Disney films. He had a chart-topping hit with the song Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf in 1933, written for the silly symphony The Three Little Pigs. Disney then brought Churchill onto his first animated feature, giving us those classic tunes, Whistle While You Work,
Just whistle while you work,
Hi-Ho,
Hi-ho, hi-ho, it's home from work we go.
Someday My Prince Will Come.
someday my prince will come.
Churchill would go on to win an Oscar for penning music for the film Dumbo, which included the song Baby Mine. Frank Churchill was named a Disney legend in 2001. This is Fir Hill Cemetery in Sandy, Oregon. In these grounds we find the final resting place of George Bruns. He came to Disney in the 50s and found early success in Disney's pioneering television work. He had a hit writing the ballad of Davy Crockett, which would help launch the Davy Crockett craze of the 50s. He earned 4 Oscar nominations for his film work at Disney, for Babes in Toyland, Robin Hood, The Sword and the Stone, and for adapting Sleeping Beauty. And if you find yourself at Disneyland or Disney World singing Yo-Ho, Yo-Ho, A Pirate's Life for Me, you can thank George Bruns. He wrote the Pirates song with lyrics by Ex Atencio. George Bruns was named a Disney legend in 2001. We find ourselves now at Indian Hill Cemetery in Middletown, Connecticut. This is where Ali Rubel is laid to rest. He's remembered today for writing a song that is perhaps second only to When You Wish Upon a Star in its association with Disney, a song that perfectly encapsulates the buttery optimism of Disney. Zippity-doo-dah.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-yay.
The song was written by Rubel in 1946 with lyrics by Ray Gilbert for the film Song of the South. And though Song of the South is no longer shown, the song itself has endured, even featured on the Disneyland ride Splash Mountain. It won Rubel and Gilbert the Oscar for Best Song, and was ranked number 47 on AFI's list of top 100 tunes of American cinema. Many of the composers we've featured so far team up with great lyricists to put words to their songs. Among them was Ned Washington, who rests here in the mausoleum at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City. Ned Washington teamed up with Lee Harline to write the words to When You Wish Upon a Star. As mentioned, the song won them the Oscar. He would also be nominated for writing the lyrics to Baby Mine from Dumbo. Ned Washington was a member of the Songwriters Hall of Fame and was named a Disney legend in 2001. The next generation of great Disney songwriters came to us in the form of 2 brothers. We're at Hillside Cemetery now in Culver City, where rests Robert Sherman. With younger brother Richard, The Sherman Brothers are responsible for some of the catchiest and most beloved tunes ever to come out of Disney. In the 1960s, they were the lyrical voice of Walt Disney. They're perhaps best remembered for their work on Mary Poppins, including the songs Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious,
It's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious,
Chim Chim Cheree, which won them the Oscar,
Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim cheree.
and Feed the Birds, which would become Walt Disney's favorite song.
Feed the birds, tuppence a bag.
That same year, they wrote the song It's a Small World After All for the World's Fair, the most performed and most get stuck in your head song of all time. Other productions they wrote songs for include Bedknobs and Broomsticks, The Jungle Book, and The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. The Sherman Brothers were portrayed in the 2013 film Saving Mr. Banks, and became Disney legends in 1990. We're back again at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills, in the Sheltering Hills section. Here lies Buddy Baker. The Sherman Brothers wrote the songs for Winnie the Pooh, but another Disney legend wrote the score for Winnie the Pooh films, Buddy Baker. He arrived at Disney in the 50s, helping write music for various television productions. Other of his feature film work includes The Fox and the Hound in 1981. Later in life, he became music director for WED Enterprises, aka Disney Imagineering, crafting music for many of Disney Parks' attractions. Perhaps his most beloved tune from the Disney parks is Grim Grinning Ghosts from the Haunted Mansion, with lyrics by Exitencio.
Doors creak and the tombstones quake.
Spooks come knock for his wane and wake. Grim grinning ghosts come out to socialize.
Baker spent his final years mentoring the next generation of film composers, and was named a Disney legend in 1998. The late 80s, early 90s were known as a Renaissance era for Disney animation, and much of that is owed to the brilliant work of our next songwriter, Howard Ashman, who rests here at Oheb Shalom Memorial Park in Baltimore, Maryland. Ashman was a lyricist who collaborated with musician Alan Menken to write songs for the movie that would turn around Disney's fortunes in 1989, The Little Mermaid. In an era when Disney animation seemed to be on its last leg, The Little Mermaid splashed onto the scene, pun intended, with stunning animation and infectiously memorable music. Howard Ashman wrote the lyrics for songs like Part of Your World,
Wish I could be part of that world,
and Under the Sea, which earned Ashman and Menken an Oscar.
While we're devoting full time to floating under the sea.
Next would come one of the most successful animated films of all time, Beauty and the Beast, featuring songs that have become timeless, like Be Our Guest,
Be our guest, be our guest, be our guest.
and Beauty and the Beast, which won Ashman his second Oscar.
song as old as rhyme, Beauty and the Beast.
But this award would be posthumous, as, tragically, Ashman died of AIDS-related complications just months before Beauty and the Beast was released. After his death, some of his songs were also used in Aladdin, including Friend Like Me. Howard Ashman was named a Disney legend in 2001, and was the title subject of the documentary, Howard. Oh, that he had one more song to sing. One more song. If you've ever walked down Main Street at Disneyland or Disney World, you may have noticed names painted on the windows. These names aren't random. They are tributes to the men and women who made significant contributions to the creation of magic at Disney parks. Walt Disney Imagineering, originally WED Enterprises, was founded in 1952, when Walt's focus began to shift away from animation to other forms of entertainment. The purpose of this new enterprise? To design and build Disneyland. For this final chapter of our tour, we'll remember some of the talented Imagineers, artists, and performers who brought the magic of Disney off the screen and into the real world at Disney parks.
Disneyland.
In 1952, Walt hired art director Richard Irvine to act as a liaison between Disney and an architectural firm that would build Disneyland. Irvine convinced Walt that his own artists were among the best to design the park. Disneyland would be made with a cinematic eye rather than an industrial eye. Thus, Walt formed WED Enterprises, where Irvine would be a senior figure in the construction of Disneyland and later Disney World. Throughout his near 20-year career at Disney Imagineering, Irvine would oversee the design and planning of all of the park's attractions, including Pirates of the Caribbean, It's a Small World, and The Haunted Mansion. He rests here at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills, and was named a Disney legend in 1990. Walt would call on some of his most talented artists to help bring his vision of Disneyland to life. Among them was a man known as Disney's Renaissance artist, John Hench, who rests here at Rose Hills Memorial Park. He was one of the original Imagineers, and his first assignment at WED was to design attractions for the original Tomorrowland, eventually including Space Mountain, and also designed portions of Adventureland. He would go on to help master plan Walt Disney World, including Cinderella's Castle, and later help develop Tokyo Disneyland. His work in film includes the special effects in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which won an Oscar. He was also the official portrait painter of Mickey Mouse. The world is happier because of John Hench, who became a Disney legend in 1990. This is the columbarium of the Evening Star at Forest Lawn Glendale, where we find a number of Disney legends. Bill Cottrell was the first president of Disney Imagineering, then known as WED Enterprises. Bill began as a storyman at Disney, writing for several of Disney's early features, and even directing the Evil Queen and Wicked Witch sequences in Snow White. In the 50s, he brought his talents to WED. Walt would rely heavily on Bill's creativity and insight during the planning and construction phase of Disneyland. He wrote storylines for rides in Fantasyland, including Snow White's Adventures. He was named a Disney legend in 1994. Bill was also Walt's brother-in-law, having married Lillian's sister. Hazel Sewell was the first head of the ink and paint department at Disney, making her the first woman in the animation industry to serve as a head of a division. The department itself consisted entirely of women, the unsung heroes of Disney animation, who translated the pencil sketches by the animators onto the final inked and painted cells that we see on film. Hazel was also an art director on Snow White. Also here is son-in-law Marvin Davis, who worked on the master plan and layout of Disneyland, including Main Street USA and Sleeping Beauty Castle. Davis would also be the master site planner for the Florida project, Walt Disney World. He was named a Disney legend in 1994. We're at Mount Sinai Cemetery now, adjacent to Forest Lawn Hollywood Hills, where rests Marty Sklar. He joined Imagineering in 1961, where he would help design the Enchanted Tiki Room and It's a Small World. By 1974, he became Vice President of Concepts and Planning, guiding the development of Epcot, Walt's experimental prototype community of tomorrow. He was a dedicated torchbearer of Disney's philosophy throughout his career as Principal Creative Executive at Walt Disney Imagineering, supervising design and construction of Disney's global park expansion, including Tokyo Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, and Hong Kong Disney. He is the only Imagineer to have attended the grand opening of all of Disney's parks. Marty Sklar was named a Disney legend in 1994. At Forest Lawn Glendale, not far from where Walt rests, we find Claude Coates. As an artist, he was known for his rich background paintings for films like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Pinocchio. When Walt began work on Disneyland, Coates was another of the artists he called upon to bring the magic of his artwork to the park. He would paint the designs and environments for the sets that would become rides like Pirates of the Caribbean, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and the Haunted Mansion. He would continue to design rides at every extant Disney park throughout his life, and was named a Disney legend in 1991. We're back at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills. Frank Wells was the president of the Walt Disney Company between 1984 and 1994. During his tenure, the Walt Disney Company saw unprecedented growth. With Michael Eisner, he was a key supporter of expanding Disney parks, with rides like Star Tours, Splash Mountain, and Indiana Jones. He was also instrumental in creating Disneyland Paris and growing the company's international presence. Tragically, Wells died in a helicopter crash in 1994. A building at the Walt Disney Studio was named in his honor, and he became a Disney legend in 1994. Actors and performers aren't only seen on the screen. Disney has called on the talents of many to entertain us right within the parks. Take Thurl Ravenscroft, for example, who we find here at Cathedral Memorial Gardens in Orange County. He was perhaps the most famous bass voice of his generation, including as Tony the Tiger and the vocalist of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. He lent his voice to Disney films like The Aristocats and 101 Dalmatians, but you'll also hear that distinctive deep voice of Ravenscroft throughout the Disney parks, including in the Enchanted Tiki Room, Pirates of the Caribbean, Mark Twain riverboat, and as one of the singing busts in the Haunted Mansion.
Creepy creeps with eerie eyes.
He was named a Disney legend in 1995. Leaving LA behind a moment, we visit Evergreen Washelli Memorial Park in Seattle, Washington. Here we find the final resting place of Betty Taylor, known to a generation of Disneyland visitors as Slewfoot Sue. She performed as Slewfoot Sue in Disneyland's Golden Horseshoe Revue, with partner Wally Bogue, beginning in 1956 for an astounding 45,000 performances over 31 years. An estimated 10 million people watched her perform over the years.
But when he caught them crooked villains, why, he knocked out all their villains. And that is why there's gold in them bar hills.
She died one day after her performing partner, Wally Bogue, and they were both named Disney Legends in 1995. One of the great innovations that Disney brought to its parks from the 1964 World's Fair was audio animatronics. Audiences were stunned when they saw a moving, talking Abraham Lincoln in Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. We're at Los Angeles National Cemetery, where rests Royal Dano, the man Disney called on to provide the voice of Abraham Lincoln.
The world has never had a good definition of the word liberty.
Dano had played Lincoln on TV a number of times and was therefore the perfect choice. We're at Inglewood Park Cemetery now, southwest of LA. Here we find the final resting place of Disneyland's first Tinkerbell, Tiny Klein. The diminutive star began her career as a circus performer. In 1961, Walt began to look for a performer to wow crowds at Disneyland as Tinkerbell, flying over the castle. At the age of 70, Tiny Klein was cast in the role of Tinkerbell, flying over crowds on a wire from Sleeping Beauty's castle to the Matterhorn during the fireworks show at night. She played the role until her death in 1964. We head north to Holy Cross Cemetery to find our next legend of Disney parks, Xavier Atencio, known as X Atencio. He began as an animator and story writer at Disney, including for Fantasia and Winnie the Pooh. Disney recruited X to write stories and narrations for rides. It was X who wrote the script for Pirates of the Caribbean.
They were having fun, and they were just a bunch of fun-loving pirates.
Not only that, he penned the lyrics for the song Yo Ho Yo Ho of Pirates Fight For Me. And you can hear the voice of X as the talking skull at the beginning of the ride. His next major contribution to the park was writing the script for The Haunted Mansion, and the lyrics for the Grim Grinning Ghosts song. He lived to be 98 and was named a Disney legend in 1996. And in addition to having a window, X is one of several Imagineers whose name you'll see engraved on the tombstones at the Haunted Mansion. Our final stop on our tour through the animated graveyards of Disney brings us back to where we started, at Forest Lawn Glendale. The millions of visitors to Disneyland may not know the name of Leota Toombs, but they certainly know her face, as the character of Madame Leota in the Haunted Mansion, also named for her. Leota began her career at Disney in the ink and paint department, and would eventually take her skills as a craftswoman to WED, working on attractions like Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion. They needed a model for the disembodied head of a gypsy woman in a crystal ball in the Haunted Mansion, and Leota was chosen for her exotic look. Though as mentioned earlier, the overdubbed voice was Eleanor Audley. But the voice that you hear at the end of the ride, Little Leota urging you to hurry back, is the actual voice of Leota Toombs.
Hurry back.
She was named a Disney legend in 2009.
Be sure to bring your death certificate.
And that concludes our tour. What are some of your favorite Disney memories? Share them in the comments below, and as Little Leota said, hurry back for more famous grave tours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Here's some food for thought for all you Disney lovers out there. What if the forest lawn deer who daily graze among the graves of all these Disney legends are direct descendants of the very deer Disney used to animate Bambi?